All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our Leadership Success Navigator webinar series. We have David Liddell, President and Founder of SKYE Business Solutions, here to present today's webinar, The Right Leadership Mindset, Working On versus Working in the Business. David is an executive coach and leadership development expert. He's going to entertain you in this next hour and provide you with some tips and techniques that will improve your leadership skills today. Please welcome David Liddell.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Great to see we have a good-sized crew on today. Again, welcome. Today's topic is the right leadership mindset. Our topic for this quarter is about leaders articulating their vision and direction for the organization. And the specific topic for the month is connecting employees to business value. Very, very important. Actually, let me back up. That's next month's topic. This month's is about effective leadership mindset, how you think about yourself as a leader, and that will have a direct impact on how you perform as a leader. If you haven't been on the webinar series in the past, we do this every month. We have a new topic every month, and it's designed around a very specific topic. What we try to do is have everything we do for the month, webinar, newsletter, anything related to our speaking topics that are all connected to a very similar topic. So as you move and go through the year with us, there's a method to our madness. We're trying to get people to think like leaders, act like leaders, and perform more effectively, and essentially get others to perform as leaders. So the session is designed to run 1 hour. We try to start right on time and end right on time so people know that they can get in and get out unscathed and easily get back to work. This will be a little bit of a working session, and the reason we want you to work a little bit is so that you take something away from today. With that, you're going to need the worksheet, and I know Joe has very kindly invited everyone to download that worksheet if you haven't already. Please don't forget, and I'm going to encourage you to take some notes as we go along. Near the end, we're going to open it up for questions. We don't open it up to audio. What we do is we ask you to type it into the Q&A section, and then those questions will be read back to me at the end. I will answer them real time. If we don't have enough time to answer your question fully, please do connect with us afterwards, and I will make sure that I provide more detail and as much information as you need to get your questions answered. So with that, I'm going to start, and I'm going to start by asking you to think about a few questions. If I can get this thing to work. All right, hold on, folks. Technology, sometimes my friend. Here we go. 5 important questions I want you to think about as a leader. And the first question is your business running you, or are you running your business? What I find, and this is especially for new leaders, is they jump into a role of management, leadership, supervision, but they don't switch their mindset from thinking about the business as a whole, and they allow a lot of day-to-day things get them caught up. I call that operating in the vortex, and where you become very reactionary versus being more in a proactive position. It doesn't mean you're not going to have to put out fires or solve problems, because that's part of what you do as a leader. But we want to try to encourage you here to think about you running your business and ensuring that you're doing the right things along the way so that the business is running effectively and you're improving the business. Secondly, have you provided your employees clear direction? And I've got strategic in parentheses there for a reason, because it's the strategic piece doesn't necessarily mean you're doing strategic planning. I want you to be thinking strategically, thinking more critically, and thinking broadly about the world around you. Is everything you're doing as a leader in the context of what's best for the business, and are you providing enough direction to the people, your employees, who need direction so that they can make better decisions using that information? Are you personally delegating and sharing enough responsibility? I already know the answer to that, and it's not enough. And I say that very confidently because of all the people I work with, coach, and train every year, even the ones who I consider to be the best leaders. They'll even say to me, David, I'm still not doing enough in that area. I can get better. The fourth question is, do your employees know how their contribution provides value to the organization's success? What that means is everybody, every single person in your organization wants to know they're providing value, meaning that their contribution matters. That's one of the most important things. When I ask the question of people, what motivates your employees? And after correcting them when they say money, we come to the realization that it's something deeper. It's more fundamental to being a person, a human being, that drives people. And a big chunk of it is, does what I do really matter? Am I making a contribution? And then number 5 is, do you have a plan, a deliberate plan for every person who reports to you? And this is very important. Every single day, as a leader, you're out there trying to create strong organizations and ensure the results are being achieved. What we forget sometimes is that if you're going to keep people engaged and motivated, they as individuals have to be growing professionally themselves. They have to be growing in confidence. They have to be challenged, and it's your responsibility to ensure that's happening. That does not happen by accident. Well, it can sometimes, but most of the time it does not happen by accident. It is a deliberate plan for you to think about each individual who reports to you. So if you want to just take a moment and look at these questions, actually I'll give you a chance. What I'd like you to do right now is I'd like to grab your worksheet. It looks very much like what I've got right in the screen here, just a little bigger. I want you to get your hands on that worksheet because we're going to be talking about question number 1. Now I'll remove that again, and I want you to look at these 5 questions. And if you think about it, question number 1 on the worksheet says, which of these 5 questions concerns you the most regarding your current leadership approach? So take just a moment, read through them, and write down the question or the area that you want to focus on. I'll give you just about 30 seconds to think about that and write something down. About 10 more seconds. Okay. The reason why I started with these 5 questions is I want you to think about yourself, and I want you to become more self-aware of your leadership capability. We all can make improvements. And like anything, until you're an absolute expert, and even when you become an expert, you always have to practice. So some of this, if any of you have been through leadership development training in the past, you might say, well, this is a little bit of a repeat, or I've heard some of this before. Well, let me share something with you. Leadership hasn't changed in thousands of years. It's the same principles exist, but what happens is we let other things get in the way of us performing most effectively. So think about these things, and as we go through the rest of these questions throughout today's webinar, I'm going to give you some ideas and thoughts to think about that will help you improve upon one or many of these areas. And specifically, the question comes down to how well do you, well, first question is, do you know where your time goes? And many leaders do. Some do a great job of understanding it. Most don't even think about it, and they're mostly reactionary. So I want you to have a look at this next slide here. The question is, are you working on the right things? And if anyone has read Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, you'll recognize this. This is the urgent versus important quadrant, or the time management quadrant. And the question is, are you spending your time in the right places? You could be a very, very efficient person working on the wrong things, and that's not good. So let's just have a look at this quadrant here. There's the urgent and the not urgent, and then the important and the not important. You'll see that the urgent and important, these are the things where you probably spend most of your time. And these are just a few examples. You could Google time management quadrant and you'll pull this up, It's really common domain. It's been around for a long time, but I know for a fact that most people and most leaders don't think about this, and that's why I always bring it up. The urgent and important could be anything from what a customer needs to what your boss needs to what is critical to the value of your organization, delivering the value. But there can be an awful lot of things in there that are imposed on you by other people. The urgent, not important category, these are things that really come from forces outside your control, but oftentimes you allow them to interrupt you. And if you've ever heard the term of interrupt driven, some people are just that. They are interrupt driven, and you need to avoid these sorts of things. And then there are the not urgent, not important category, which is the category 4 here, which is just pure time wasting activity that most of us should be able to avoid with a considerable amount of ease. But I'm going to take you up to quadrant 2, which is the not urgent, important category. Here's the good thing about today. This activity you're engaged in right now is not urgent, but it's certainly important. It's important for you, your professional development. It's important for your organization because it's adding value to you, and you're going to become better at what you do, which means others around you are going to become more effective. Anything, if you look at some of the things on this list, relationship building within the organization, strong business relationships solve a lot of problems. Specific problem solving, planning ahead, improving on the business. And so you'll see where we have avoid on the bottom half of the quadrant, but then manage and focus. The urgent important, you can't get away from it entirely. So you have to manage what falls into that category. The more time you're able to spend in the quadrant 2, the area where you need to focus, that makes the lists in the other quadrants shorter, because it's more about improving yourself, improving the business, improving people around you so that you become more effective. Let me back it up. More efficient and effective for the organization. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to have, this is going to be question 2 on the worksheet, but I would also like to open up the poll. Hopefully we can see it here. What I'd like you to do is what is one of your organization's biggest time wasters? And all you have to do is jot your answer down in there and hit submit, and I'll get a list of answers. And as I get the answers, as we move along near the end of this, I'll broadcast the results back to you so you can see what other organizations are facing. Your name won't be listed, just the answer you've put in. So it is anonymous. You don't have to worry about that piece of it. So please, when you get a chance, do put some information in there for me. I'd really appreciate it so we can share it. But also, if you would think about question 2 in the worksheet, and question 2 says identify and write down something you should be doing but aren't that fits in quadrant 2. All right, so take about, we'll do another 30, 40 seconds for you to think about that. I want you to think deeply about it because this is something you can work on tomorrow or even right after today's session that will help you improve your existence and your performance as a leader. So go ahead, start now. Okay, another 10 seconds or so. Okay, wonderful. And I'm seeing answers come in on the poll questions. Thank you very much. Continue to add there. I'm not gonna post the results till a little later on, so you have some time to jot some things in there around that poll question. Thank you. So right now on your worksheet, question 1 really talks about becoming more self-aware. What can I work on? What concerns me as a leader? Item 2, you're starting to think about how should I start thinking more proactively as a leader? What should I start working on more either for myself or for the organization? All right, we're going to move on here. I just want to point out if there are any frontline leaders on the line here, and I'm assuming there are. Actually, I recognize some of the names, so yeah, I think there are. This was a survey done of about 1,600 respondents by McKinsey & Company. And the question was, the closest description of a frontline manager's role. And you can see the percentages. The top one was firefighter. And I think all of you probably feel like a firefighter once in a while. An auditor, a micromanager, and then the lowest, well, I should say the lowest, but one of the lower ones was being a coach, which, as if for some of you who know who I am, I promote leaders to be more of a coach more of the time, because that means you're nurturing and working with your employees. So this is to say, well, it doesn't mean it's an excuse. What it means is you're in good company with a lot of people out there that struggle with the firefighter, the micromanager, the what I call getting pulled into the vortex, that day-to-day craziness. But to get out of it, to avoid it, to essentially become more effective requires one thing, and that's you making a commitment to changing your approach to being a leader, and that requires discipline. So we'll continue to talk about some of the things as we go through it. A big chunk of it is just having a frame of reference to work through it. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to explore a few things here. We're going to explore the 3 elements of team effectiveness, because no matter what, whether you have a small team, a large team, or you're just part of a team, the elements of team effectiveness are critical. We're going to talk about the 5 roles of leadership. We've got to understand the balance between the 5 roles, because there needs to be balance. And we're going to talk about leading from the balcony. I'll explain more about that in just a minute. And essentially, how do you become a stronger leader? Keep in mind, today's theme is about your leadership mindset. All right. So the team model, and what I don't have written down here is some of the things I'm going to talk about, but I would encourage you to jot just a few of these things down relative to these 3 circles, this Venn diagram I have here. The team model is made up of 3 components: the team charter, your design, and your relationships. And let me explain what each one of these means. The team charter describes why the team exists. Every team, whether it's a senior management team, and a complete company as a team, an organization, a department as a team, there's a reason why you exist. And it comes down to things, the elements that are part of what that is who are your customers, both external as well as internal. What's our mission? What are we there to achieve? Okay. What are our values? How do we work together? How do we work with other parts of the organization? How do we deliver our value? And things like goals. How do we measure our success? That's the team charter. The design describes what a team does, how it does it, and essentially how do we produce that value? How do we deliver on the promise we've created for the customers and stakeholders that are out there? The elements of design are things like your core work process. You have to have a strong core work process. Not every team or organization does, but you should. There has to be very, very clear lines for roles and responsibilities. Where do my responsibilities start and end? Where does this person start and end? And where's the overlap? Because there's always a little bit of overlap. And people also understand, what is my decision authority? There has to be procedures, there has to be norms, and there has to be systems to support everything that goes on in the organization. And many of our systems today are electronic. Good and bad, but they are electronic. And then, of course, relationships. That describes how people work together. Essentially, how people work together to accomplish their mission, to achieve their goals. The elements within relationships, and of course none of this is going to surprise you, but trust and respect, absolutely a critical and fundamental element of how organizations work together. There's communication. Communication is the vehicle, it's the medium in which trust and respect is grown and reduced. We want to grow. The cohesion within the organization and any kind of synergistic energy. So if you put 2 or 3 people in a room, more often than not, they're going to produce better, more creative, more innovative ideas than just one person because of that 1 + 1 is greater than 2 concept. All right, so think about this. I'm going to come back to the team model in just a minute, but I want you to think about these 3 elements, whether you're running a team or part of a team. If you think about these 3 elements, these are the things that have to be clear to everybody on the team so the team is efficient and, most importantly, effective. All right, so we're going to talk about the 5 leadership roles next. Now you'll see we're gonna come to this on question 3 on your worksheet. You'll see there's a question: how do you spend your time as a leader today based on the 5 leadership roles? So what I want you to pay attention here to each one of these. I'm going to go through each one of the roles, and then I'm going to ask you to write down what percentage of your time, not in a given day, but over the course of time. You might see, look over a month or a quarter. How much of your time are you spending on the 5 leadership roles? So first, technician. If any of you are in a position where you've been promoted, either in the past or recently, the technical role, this is, and a technician is not like a technician on your car technician. This is the technical aspect of your job. If you're an accountant, you might eventually become the vice president of accounting or finance or become the CFO. That concept, that's the technician. So there's the technician role, and these are roles, these are hats you wear all the time as a leader. The proportion of how you wear them is really what we'll get to in a moment. But you have a high degree of technical proficiency. People will seek you out as the expert in a particular area. You're great at putting out fires, troubleshooting, and even the technician likes to put out fires because you're good at something very specific, and you're willing to make the decision quickly. All right, so that's really, really quite important if you think about the technician role of what you do. The technician does get involved in doing a lot of things, okay? They may not, and oftentimes it's by the direction of the organization. So think about yourself, your role, and what role you play as the technician. The next one is the manager. So some people will ask me, well, Dave, I need management training, or I need to become a better manager. And I'll ask the question, do you mean manager or do you mean leader? Because they're not exactly the same. For me, management, being the manager, is a subset of leadership. I want people to do a great job of managing their business, but I don't want you to manage people, if that makes any sense. I want you to be a great leader of people. I want you to be a great manager of the business, because they work together and they support one another. You can't have one without the other. But the manager looks at what needs to get done, plans it, sets goals, priorities. Any kind of report that comes across your desk or any kind of report you need to run is because you're wearing your manager hat. You want to know how well things are running. It's coordinating meetings, and I don't mean being the bookkeeper of all meetings. What I mean is it's your job to think about who needs to meet, when do we need to meet, what's the importance, and essentially maintaining the discipline within the organization to ensure you're hitting your goals. These 2 roles, a technician and manager, are critical. Absolutely critical. All right. However, I do want to talk about the 3 other roles, because the technician and the manager, that is working in your business. If we go back to the time management quadrant, you'll notice that there was that quadrant 1, which was the urgent, important. Technicians and managers spend an awful lot of time there, okay, when you wear those hats as a leader. Let's continue on, and I want to differentiate the working in your business with working on your business. Let's go back to the team model. And what I've listed here, leading from the balcony, I introduced that term earlier. Leading from the balcony is really taking a high-level view, like sitting in a balcony in a theater and looking down on your business and saying, this is what's going on. And because it's easy, especially today with managers and leaders being working managers and leaders, we get sucked into the day-to-day, we get sucked into that vortex, and we become so reactive that we don't have time to think about working on the business. And then we get stuck and we can't get out of there. That's probably one of the biggest, most pervasive issues in every organization, at least from my experience and all of my colleagues who deal with clients across the country. And experientially, that is one of the biggest issues. So let's look at how the 5 roles of leadership relates to the team model. Just like that. The architect is connected to the design, what the team does. The trailblazer is connected to the why, and the coach is directly related to the how the team does it. So let me give you some further definitions in each one of these. Team charter. So if we look at trailblazing, the trailblazer analyzes the environment. What's going on? What's the vision? And now some of you might be thinking, well, Dave, I'm not a CEO. I'm not someone at the top of the organization. It doesn't matter. Anybody in an organization who has a leadership mindset can think about their immediate environment and their sphere of influence and what's going on. How do we want to achieve? How could we be doing it better? What are the things we haven't thought of? How do we innovate? Everybody can think that way. So I don't want you to put yourself in a bucket one way or the other. It's translating the vision into objectives, interfacing with others outside the organization. If you can, if that's something you can do, is connect with other people. Your organization might be the most successful organization that you've worked for or can think of, but there's always other ways, better ways. And even if you don't like what someone says, you don't like the idea, learning from others and learning about new ideas and new ways is a great idea. So the why do we do what we do piece, that's where you put your trailblazer hat on. You think about it, and you think about how that relates to everything that's going on, including the value that your organization delivers. I mean, think about where you are in your company today, the role that you hold. How are you and your team part of delivering value to the end customer? Okay, what value does the end customer get from your product or service, and how are you part of that? And I want you to think about it, and I want you to think about that not just for you, but for your employees. Very, very important. Coach, that is the relationship how piece. How do we work together? And the coach is the one, just like a sports coach. They don't play in the field. What they do is they look at the people, the players, or in your case, your employees, and you're looking for potential. You're looking for the full potential of the people in your organization and how much you want them to achieve, how much you think they can achieve. And your job is to coach them there. And coaching is not I shouldn't say it's not about critique. It is about critique, but it's taking that constructive criticism, looking for the strengths of individuals, and working to help people improve on their strengths, looking for those capabilities people have, and helping them leverage those and helping them achieve more than they'd achieve on their own. It's also about the team dynamic. Are people working together effectively? Are they creating strong business relationships? Is there emotional resilience within the organization working? You probably all have today or have worked with somebody that might allow their emotions to show on their sleeves, and it causes havoc and it causes grief within the organization. Coaches help people address those sorts of things. Some people are very emotional, some aren't. For those who are, what they need to do is they need to learn how to control that and manage through that. That's what coaches help people do. For those who don't show their emotions, they might be lacking in empathy. So you have to help them understand how they can be more effective in showing empathy for others and building strong relationships. And then finally, the architect. The architect looks at the organization, analyzes the organization, and is looking for better ways. And it's not just pushing ideas on people, it's asking for input. It's facilitating dialogue within the team to say, can we do this better? Or better, how do we do this better? How do we get there? We know what we need to achieve. We know there are better ways to do this. And as the world changes around us, because that's how it works, with the economy and world pressures and all the things that come at us. I mean, as you know, right now we're very fortunate that oil prices are low. They're going to come back up. And when they do come back up, it's going to put more pressure on organizations, which means leaders need to step up. Well, that's why we always have, we can't stop innovating and improving. And that's probably one of the best things we have in this country is we are strong innovators. All right, so I want you to just think about this before we get to question 3. I'm just going to walk you through something here that I think is important for you to understand. Regardless of your position, if you look on the slide here, you'll see it says supervisor, manager, director, VP, executive VP, and then C-level. Regardless of your position, you wear all of these hats. At some given point during the day or during the week or during the month, you wear each one of these 5 roles hats: the technician, manager, trailblazer, coach, and architect. But depending on your role, there's going to be relative importance. So let me give you an example here. For the technician, the supervisor, because you might be a new supervisor, you might be hands-on, you're still going to be doing a fair amount of technical work, solving problems, providing answers. I'm hopeful that the C-level person is not doing any of that because they have people who work for them. They should be doing far more other things, and you'll recognize later that they'll be doing more trailblazing, architecture, and coaching. The manager, similarly, but that should tail off as you climb the corporate ladder. And of course, this is just a representation. I know your specific organization might be a little different. Trailblazing could look something very much like that. I want to see more. I mean, I might arguably say the manager and director level, even though my line is not that high here, could be a little higher. But trailblazing is not just, it's not strategic planning. It's strategic thinking. It's thinking beyond how we're doing it today and trying to answer some of the questions around the what ifs. That if we don't have people doing that, it's problematic, and really pulling people in the organization to think that way as well. Architect, I could see that the middle layer of the leadership chain from top to bottom is going to spend a lot of time on architecture, less so at the supervisor and manager level, but certainly some goes on there. And then coaching, and I'd like to see a massive amount of coaching across the organization. But yeah, I do recognize that supervisors and managers have less time to do so. But think about this for a minute. The more time you spend coaching, working with your people, helping them grow, helping them improve their abilities, the easier your job gets. Excuse me. The easier your job gets. And I don't think there's anybody on the line here that would say, no, I don't want my job to be easier. And I didn't say easy, easier. The challenges will change. Your job will become more interesting. The people in your organization will be able to take on more, make more decisions, which will allow you to do more important things, meaning important things at your level, because I'm sure everything that you do is important. Let's go to the worksheet. Question 3, how do you spend your time as a leader today based on the 5 roles? This is not a scientific study. This is for you alone, but I want you to see what you can come up with. You think about how much time you spend at each one of these, and of course the percentages have to add up to 100 unless your math is different than mine. So take a shot at it, and I'll give you about 30 seconds. Go ahead. Another 5 or 10 seconds. All right. So let me ask you the question. We're going to go to question number 4, but this is going to give you an opportunity to look at your pie chart there and tell me how things are, how they should look. So if you think about leading with purpose requires you to have a mindset that says, okay, now I have a framework to think about how I need to use my time as a leader. And the question is, are you working enough on your business versus in the business? And in most cases, most of the people I work with tell me without any hesitation, I'm working far too much in the business. I'm working far too much as a manager and a technician. But how do I stop? And the in the business is really the vortex. Once you get in there, you can't get out. What it requires is discipline. And I want you to write 2 things down to help you understand what discipline means. And I know you're sitting there saying, well, really? Yeah, I want you to write these things down. And there's just 2 words. Discipline is made up of 2 components. This is all I want you to write down. First of all, you have to start. If you make up your mind to start something, okay, then or to do something to make a difference, you have to start. The next part of it is repeat. That's it. You start it and you repeat it. And you continue to repeat it until your behavior, which we all suffer from this, we are driven by habits. What happens when you get into the vortex, the working in the business, you don't think about anything else but solving problems, putting out fires, and trying to get through the day. Now, for some of you on the line saying, well, hey, I'm not, I know I do work on the business. I congratulate you. Good. You can do more. And part of it, part of this is about delegating and pushing responsibility to others. Believe me, those of us on the line here who fall into the control freak category, you probably think nobody can do anything as well as you. Believe me, you'll be surprised. You have to have faith. You have to coach them. You have to push them through to the next level of proficiency. But I want you to really think hard about working on your business and where you should be spending your time. Question 4 on the worksheet says, to improve your leadership effectiveness, how should you change your 5-role distribution? So you know what the distribution looks like right now. What does it need to look like? Which one of those needs to grow? Or which one of them needs to shrink? Because what you can write down under item 4 is, what do I need to do more of? And what do I need to do less of? And let's use the 5 roles as a framework to think that through. So I'm going to give you just about, this one might take a little longer. I'm going to give you about a minute to think that through. Go ahead. About 30 seconds. And if you haven't had a chance to jot down an answer for the poll question, what is one of your organization's biggest time wasters? Please chime in. You can just jot it right down there. All right, time's up on question 4. So you should understand how you spend your time. And how do you shift your mindset? Well, you use this framework to think about what you should do less of and more of, and then be disciplined, and you've already got the definition on discipline, be disciplined on making it happen. What I'd like to do here, just for a minute, before we get to the last question, I'd like to broadcast the results. And I trust the results are showing up. What I see here is interruptions, emails, meetings where nothing is accomplished, unnecessary meetings, sounds like the same, emails, meetings, let's see what else here, excessive meetings. All right, so I'm going to say meetings and emails are a huge time waster in your organization. Emails and meetings usually fall into the category of technician, and manager, most often. So if this is just a very informal study of who we have on the line, we can certainly see here that we're probably in the same category as most of the people I work with, that they struggle with getting sucked into the day-to-day. The question is, I have for all of you is, how many of these emails can be avoided? How much of an impact can you have on the email communication within your organization? As a leader, you can improve your ability to communicate through email. Meetings, do you need to be in all of these meetings? Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. I think we've all suffered from this. And meetings in themselves, if there's no purpose, there's no agenda, and there's no focus, I would encourage you to speak up and say, we need to run more effectively, or we don't need this meeting, or we need an agenda, we need purpose. What are we trying to accomplish today? Anybody in a meeting can set that standard, and that's how leaders think. They always think about what results are we trying to get. All right, let me take you to the next slide here. And this is going to relate to the very last question. So I'm going to spend a few minutes here just talking about these 4 items. So improving your leadership mindset has everything to do with how you function, how you're viewed, how people perceive you. So take a moment, think of a leader, and it could be somebody within your organization today, but think of a leader who you feel falls into the more exceptional category. Somebody who you feel portrays the type of person that you want to become and is truly an effective leader within your organization, or again, it could be someone outside. I want you to think about that person for a minute. Just try to get someone in your mind and we'll give you like 10 or 15 seconds just to think about, what is it that tells me they're effective? Okay, so you probably have someone in mind. You probably have some characteristics in mind. What's interesting here, and when I train people in groups, I'll oftentimes do this exercise. I'll make a list of what an effective leader truly is, and almost every single time the lists are identical. They might be different order, slightly different words, but the meaning is always the same. Everybody knows what an effective leader looks like, but everybody doesn't demonstrate those characteristics consistently enough. So let's look at this. Number 1, know where your time goes. If you've never done it, and I'm not suggesting you have to do this all the time, but if you've never done it, track your time for a month. Just track where it goes and see which categories it falls into relative to the 5 roles of leadership. Look at those things that truly are time wasters. Get rid of them. Look at those things that are thrust upon you, meaning they're from other people's inefficiencies, and push back and demand people to respect your time. Because if you don't, others won't. There's a guarantee on that. And make sure you're spending time in that quadrant 2. That's something you could start tomorrow. There's not a leadership pill you can take that makes you a better leader. It's making a decision and being disciplined and following through. So you tomorrow could start the process of tracking your time and seeing where it goes. Yeah, it might take a little extra effort, to track it for an entire month, or even do it for a week, although you're going to get better results over a month. But that's going to save you hours and days in the long run. And on top of it, make you more effective. Because once you get this cycle spinning in the right direction, you spend less and less time in the vortex, less and less time in the business, and more time on the business, which makes you more effective. 2, observe more and lead from the balcony. And when I say observe more, I truly want you to observe what's going on within your organization, thinking about the team model. The charter, the design, the relationships. Observe more. But I also want you to observe around you. There's a lot of amazing efficiencies and elements that just happen around us naturally. And you can learn a tremendous amount just by watching other leaders in terms of how they work, how they respond, how they communicate. Look for patterns, look for trends. Look for the reactions of others. And a big one could be just how people communicate. Do leaders that you have witnessed, do they have presence? Look at how they do that. And it doesn't mean you need to become or emulate someone else's personality. That's not what I'm saying. But observe and look for those things that you can use yourself, because it's not magic. It's behavior, it's habits, and it's really about you breaking some habits. And I don't even mean bad habits. They're just things you've learned over the years. Item 3, challenge yourself to spend more time working on the business. Now, how do you do that? You might say, yes, I'm going to do this. You might be inspired walking away today, say, Dave, you're absolutely right. I need to work on my business more. I know it's going to help me, and I know it's going to help my employees, which will help me. But if you don't truly consciously say, this is exactly what I'm going to do. And that was really part of question number 4, is what exactly are you going to do tomorrow? What's the one thing you're going to focus on tomorrow to change your focus to work on the business? Once you master one thing, once you change a habit in one area, then go work on the next one. And it's like building, it's building a strong bank account. You put in a few dollars every day, and in months and years to come, you've got a nice little nest egg. Same concept. Number 4, very difficult, especially for new leaders. But even the old dogs out there, and you know who you are, trusting others can be difficult. You might have been burned in the past, or at least you felt you've been burned. You might feel like you don't have the people around you who are as capable as you need them to be. You're nervous, you're afraid, I can't do this, I can't let go, I just don't trust people. And you can put that in quotations. I've heard that from many people. Trust begets trust. You have to trust people for them to trust you. It works in both directions. Build confidence in others. You do that by trusting them. People are going to make mistakes, however. We know that. Let them make small mistakes. Don't let them make fatal errors, small mistakes. They have to learn from them. I agree. But it's up to you to help them learn. It's up to you to help them grow. When I talked earlier about purposely having a plan, a deliberate plan for every person, well, when you don't have a plan, that's oftentimes where trust goes down the drain, because you didn't have a plan for that person. You pushed them into a particular area. You asked them to take on responsibility. They might have been well over their head. They failed in your eyes, and now you don't trust them. Have a plan. Just think it through, because everybody who works for you, their intention is good. They want to contribute to the success of the organization. They want to be successful themselves. They want to be successful for you. They want to please you. They do. Regardless of the personality we're talking about, fundamentally they do. The more you work with them, build their confidence, and trust them, the more they'll grow, perform, and you'll trust them more. So you've got to spin that trust cycle the right way. So just take about a minute or so here, and question 5 on the worksheet. What can you work on tomorrow that will move you in the right direction? And it doesn't have to be something big, but what can you work on tomorrow? Once you take Just about 45 seconds. And go. About another 10 seconds or so. Okay. If you followed through on my request to write a few things down as you went along today, your worksheet should be well populated. You should have some ideas. You can now take something away from today. I want you, if you spend an hour on a webinar of mine anyways, I'm not sure about others, but of mine, I insist and I encourage you to do something differently than you've done before walking away today. And this exercise should have you mentally thinking about some things you can do. Don't pick 17 things. Pick one, maybe two things you can walk away with. But as a minimum, change one thing that you think will improve your effectiveness. Stick to it. It takes 20 some odd days to change a habit. Don't try it one day, day two, and then quit. Work at it. Just like anything else, it takes time. All right, before I go to questions, I just want to remind everybody that we're going to have next month's webinar, April 21 at 2 p.m. And I encourage you to sign up. This is going to be a continuation of today's dialogue. We're going to be focusing on the team charter component. We're going to do a dive there on how you build team unity and drive performance as a team. And the key with all this is you've really got to connect people and the team, the unit, to the purpose and the strategy of the organization. And I know you might be thinking, well, wait a minute, I'm not involved in setting the strategy. Yes, but you need to understand it. And strategy really is just a function of delivering value. And you know exactly how to do that. So we'll talk about the team charter and what that really means and how you can do that. All right, so Joe, do we have any questions?
Yes, David, we have a couple of questions. The first one here, I'm a fairly new manager and find myself firefighting most of the time. How can I change this?
Well, that's a good question. I hear that a lot. I think the firefighting might have been picked up from the PowerPoint here. The key with firefighting is certainly recognizing that you are firefighting. I mean, that's the big piece. So you've already recognized that. And so what I would do is I would say go back to the architect role in all this. You probably recognize that the architect is the one that looks at the organization, tries to work on it, tries to fix, improve, repair. So that's what you need to do is look at, consider the architect role of leadership and work to identify what is causing the fires. And if you can put the fires out before they occur, then you're doing less firefighting. Also, as well, sometimes fires are thrust upon you, sometimes by your employees. Push people to solve their own problems. And that's not being a bad person. That's just encouraging them to take on more responsibility. So push them to solve their own problems. That's another piece of it.
Excellent. The next question I have here is, how do you delegate to an employee who you feel is not capable?
Yeah, that's a good question. That starts with your mindset, and that's why today is a big piece of this. The first thing you need to do is to reassess your opinion of their capability. Do you truly believe they're not capable? And I think what you want to do is you want to look at, what is the evidence to support your opinion? And so this is an evaluation that you need to do, but what is your opinion? Or pardon me, what's the evidence to support your opinion? And then secondly, have you done everything you need to do as a leader to help them be successful? Things like setting clear expectation, providing training where needed, making sure people have the appropriate skills, ensuring that the support structure is in place. So there's a lot of things you need to do as a leader. So I always question leaders to say, well, have you done everything you need to do? And of course, you really want to spend time evaluating their full potential and the speed at which they can change and grow. Everyone's different. Some people are taskmasters; they take things on. Some people are critical thinkers. Some aren't. The key here, might be evaluate their full potential and then take some smaller steps on helping them grow. People get into a level of comfort where they're good at something. Push them a little bit beyond that, not too far, because you don't want to break them. You want them to be in a place where they're learning.
Excellent. Looks like we have a little bit more time here. I have one more question. How much trailblazing is expected of a mid-level manager?
Yeah, that's a function of the organization to a certain degree. Probably not a ton. I think the expectation put upon them by, say, senior management would be not very much. But I think it's important that you do spend some time trailblazing. You got to think strategically. You got to think critically. If you want to grow to become a leader at a higher level in the organization, you're going to have to go there anyways. So why not challenge yourself to stretch your trailblazing mindset anyways, and to push yourself, push the organization, push others to think beyond what is, well, this is the way we've always done it, and is there a better way? Is there, what are others doing in our industry? And I encourage everybody, I don't care what your level is, to interact with others outside your company in the same industry. You'll learn an awful lot about how other people do it, and you'll also learn about how the other challenges people face.
That was our last question.
Okay, very good. Well, fantastic. I want to thank everybody today for your time. I encourage you to sign up for next month. If there are other questions you have and you just didn't want to post them here, please do send me an email. I'm happy to provide my time to answer your question. If you want a little phone time, that's fine as well. Always available to do so. And thank you very much for your time. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next month.